Hey everybody, Roxabox90 here with another top 10 EDH Commander card countdown. So today we're going to jump right into the blue and white, the Azorius Guild colors, and we're going to tackle the top 10 cards in Azorius. But before we do that, let's just quickly run over the criteria, which we always have in the past. The criteria are, for the list itself, we're trying to have Azorius cards, obviously, but we also want to have cards that are from the more global, being number one, cards that fit into the most decks and are the most overall useful, going all the way down the list to cards that are a little more narrow, cards that, while they fit Azorius really well, they might not fit other decks, etc. It's not a perfect list, and that's why we have a list of honorable mentions, which may or may not go in and other people may love. The honorable mentions that we can list here, there are a lot, and I'll put the complete list of it down below in the description, but for your interest, here are some that I love a lot but did not make the list. First up, we have World Purge. This card is like Worldfire. It is humongous, returns all permanents, and it resets the game just about entirely. It's a very, very amazing art, really cool design to it, but it's never really gonna see play except for in a very bizarre deck, and so that's limited in terms of its overall use. Then we have Teferi's Moat. A lot of people love this card. For me, I'm not such a fan. Yeah, there's ways to mess around to lock things down, but I don't like that it chooses a specific color, because while it can be a little political, which is very nice, I find this card often is shutting one or two people out of the game, and it's not even that effective because creatures without flying can attack you. I mean, come on, it's EDH Commander. There are tons of flyers and tons of creatures that can gain flying, so it's not necessarily the best protection, but it also usually ends up being a political move that causes negativity, and I'm not such a fan. Then we have all the could-be Commander cards: Grand Arbiter Augustine, Geist Ain't Trash, Rasputin. There are some more that are on the list itself, but these three I find either have to be specifically built around or draw a lot of hate, and neither of the three really work for me at all, and so I'm not having those on the list either. So those are the honorable mentions that should be mentioned. Now let's get to the top 10 list itself, starting out number 10 with Godhead of Awe. She is the Mistress, 5 for a 4/4 flying. Other creatures are 1/1s. Yeah, she is a board selling effect. You put her and Elish Norn in a room together and everyone else cries and dies. She is very, very powerful. Of course, the massive drawback being she is 5 hybrid mana, which means she's very Azorius heavy, and she also is very weak on her own. That being said, she is still a fantastic card. Number 9, we have Meddling Mage, who's one of the legendaries that did make the list. 6 for a 4/4 flying that whenever he does combat damage, you get an extra turn. That's kind of insane. What is a bit damaging to his Voltron potential is that he can attack during the extra turn, which means it doesn't really work with him. That he still is a big flyer and can easily be worked with to get ahead, and by gaining that extra turn, not only is gaining turns awesome, but it sets yourself up. You have another turn to put yourself into position to do crazy Voltron again the following turn. And so Meddling Mage can work as a Voltron commander very well. He also is relatively splashable and is a very powerful creature. Any method of giving him a form of unblockable, and you set yourself up for a crazy machine of game-winning madness. Very cool card, number 9. Number 8, we have Dovescape, which is a personal favorite of mine, but I have to be honest, is not necessarily going to be so high on the list. It's not going to see play in a gazillion decks. However, I love the card. It works with so many things. Let's just run through a few just for the heck of it. First off, put it together with Energy Field. This isn't so effective, but if you can prevent a card from going to your graveyard, it's one of the surest ways to prevent your opponents from killing you. Guile and Dovescape. The duo, they are really insane together. If you have them in play together, it equals just about guaranteed infinite Dove tokens for you, and your opponents get shut out forever. It's really insane. Pride of the Clouds. Dovescape, Pride of the Clouds. You have a 21/1s in play, you have Pride of the Clouds. One of the easiest ways to get a massive beater. Portcullis. No one's ever heard of this card, and neither have I till I put together this list, but come on. Whenever a creature comes into play, if there are 2 or more of that type of creature, the creatures get set aside. Dovescape, hello, making lots of the same creature. Boom. And last up, Elish Norn and Dovescape is insane. Just, there's no other way to put it. Your opponents will lose and cry, as most of the time they do when Elish Norn hits play. Number 7, we have Venser the Sojourner. Yeah, I know you expect Planeswalkers to be a little higher on the list, but he's not one of the greatest Planeswalkers. That being said, he still is phenomenal. He's 5 for 3 loyalty. Being able to exile target permanent you own means if your opponent steals something of yours, you can exile it, and it will return to the battlefield under your control. This is a big deal. Most people think to use it just for flickering, but it does matter if your opponent has some sort of crazy creature of yours in play. They steal your huge, crazy 50-50 whatever, and you just bounce it back under your control. Creatures are unblockable this turn. That's kind of good with most anything ever. And then -8, of course, makes you win the game by setting you up as the most powerful player. Number 6, we have Mistmeadow Witch. She's very flexible and very, very useful, which is why she's been in other commander decks in the past. But the fact is, she lets you exile any creature, which means she can defend you, and she also can flicker like crazy. The problem being is that she doesn't necessarily see a lot of play in decks that are not flicker heavy, mostly because that's mostly what she does, and if you are not playing around with her ability, then there's probably no reason to have her in the deck. But she's still very cool, and number 6. Number 5 was a tough call for me, but I'm calling Render Silent. It counters a spell, and its controller can't cast spells this turn. While this is really good, and this is why I chose it, that it locks a player down. So not only do you prevent their spell, but it also acts as a silence by locking down their turn. The other card I was considering was Swift Silence. Silence. It counters all other spells, which prevents infinite combos and counter wars and storm. Draw a card for each spell countered this way. It's a little more narrow and does cost 5, which is again why I'm choosing Render Silent over it, but both of them are very powerful counter spells that are Azorius counter spells. Then we have at number 4, Ephara, God of the Polis. She's big for Azorius colors, and even though you want to use her in Azorius because that's what gets her devotion up, the fact is that she's a draw engine. Everyone's upkeep, you get to draw a card of a creature into the battlefield in your control. So if you flicker a creature out, or you flash in a creature, or even just on your turn, if you draw a card every turn, every other turn with her, over the course of the game, she's totally worth her 4 mana cost. And of course, if you use her in the right deck, she goes bananas. In EDH, where card draw is such a big deal, she's the master card draw of Azorius. Number 3, we're getting a little more global here. Supreme Verdict. Yeah, it's what it is in Standard. It does 10 times more in EDH. The fact is, you don't want something that can be countered, because that's what Wrath spells are for, and this card it does work. It's worth the 4 mana, and it does work, and it fits into lots of decks. Number 2, Detention Sphere. Kind of the same thing. What I like about it a lot is that it exiles every permanent that the same name, and in EDH Commander, where lots of decks run similar good stuff permanents, you could very easily 2-for-1 with this. It's a better O-Ring. Yeah, not quite as splashable, but come on, it lets you get any non-land permanent for 3, and possibly 2-3 of that permanent. It also shuts down most token decks. It does a lot of work for 3 mana and is easily splashable. That's number 2. And number 1, Hannah, Ship's Navigator. Hannah, oh Hannah. If anyone of you have read the story of Invasion, it's so sad what happens to Hannah. But it's a terrible story, so don't read it. I mean, like Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, Wikipedia, something. Don't read the books. But it's very sad what happens to her. Now, Hannah, the card, wow, I love her. She's incredible. 3 tap, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. This is long-term shenanigans, and what makes her so flexible and so useful in a gazillion decks that can run her. She's amazing utility, consistent utility, works so well in anything from Esper to Control. Getting back your artifacts and enchantments long-term really makes a difference. As a commander, she is amazing utility. You land her out turn 3 or 4, your opponent starts dealing with your cards, putting them in the graveyard, you just start getting them back one after another. You chain it over and over again. She's a very, very powerful, flexible utility that fits into a ton of decks, and it's Hannah, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed the top 10 Azorius cards. Let me know what you think about this top 10 list and future top of the 10 list. What guild do you want to see next? Put that down in the comment section of the video. If you enjoyed the video, tap the like button, and if you're new to the channel, check in and subscribe. As always, Roxabox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.